video is for you if you want to know how to look younger than your actual age or not to look older than your actual age. I'm 70, and if you listen to the media, you would think that I'd be sitting around all day in a woolly shawl moaning at the TV. But you can see that's not me. And I don't intend to end my days like that if I can help it. So in this video, I'm going to go through 7 signs of aging, and the list isn't exhaustive, and I'm sure you can come up with more, and what we can do to counter them. So let's get started. Oh, and hello and welcome to Beauty by Des, or welcome back. So let's start with number 1, stray hairs. Now, I'm sure we can all relate to that. I know I certainly can, because I have one white hair in my eyebrow, which I've had for years, and the only time I notice it is when it's so long that it actually droops down. But I also now have, it's not a stray hair, but it's a black hair in my moustache. In fact, this is the only place that I'm actually really hairy, is around my moustache, and I used to use Jolene cream bleach years ago. But in the last few years, since I started my channel actually, I've started to use a little razor specifically made for women's facial hair, which is also a dermaplaner. That's another sort of fancy word for it, but it's basically a razor with very fine blades so it doesn't cut you, and it gets rid of the excess hair on your face. Now, this one, unfortunately, I plucked, which I shouldn't have done years ago, and for some reason or other, this black hair grows back coarse, but it's the only one. So I do think stray hairs, and particularly on your chin or on the side of your face, can be quite aging, and also unruly brows actually. So if you are concerned about the hair on your face, I would urge you to try dermaplaning, and I'll put the details down below for you and on the screen of the razor that I use. It works an absolute treat, and I do think if we remove unwanted hair, of course if we like having hair there, that's perfectly fine, but if we don't want it, and I would suggest it is a sign of aging, then all you need to do is say every 4 weeks use one of these little razors, and you will remove the hair temporarily and your skin will look smooth and gorgeous and younger. Now, talking of skin, the next sign of aging can be red or ruddy or blotchy skin. Now, there are some things we can do about that. My skin is a little bit red, but generally speaking, it's not too bad, although I do have some broken veins, which you could have removed by laser if you wanted to. And there are other treatments for red and blotchy skin, but I'm not really going to suggest treatments here because I don't have the condition. I'll signpost you in the description box and on the screen to dermatologists who have videos about how to treat red or blotchy skin. But what I'm suggesting is that we can cover it up, and really easily as well, and inexpensively. Now, some of you may not like wearing foundation, and that's absolutely fine. You can use a tinted moisturizer, or you can even use a concealer. You don't need to wear the same complexion makeup all over your face. You really don't need to do that. You could just actually cover up the red bits with concealer, and actually we're going to talk about that a bit later in this video, or you could use a tinted moisturizer. And I think tinted moisturizers have really come on in leaps and bounds over the last few years, and you can pay a lot of money or you can get some very inexpensive ones, and actually one of the most inexpensive is the Wet n Wild tinted moisturizer. I don't think it even calls itself that, but it's something ridiculous like £3 or $3 or $4. It's incredibly reasonably priced, and it gives really good coverage as well. So I do think if you are concerned about red and blotchy skin, and I do suggest that it is a sign of aging, then I would definitely check out wearing a tinted moisturizer or a concealer, and again I'll list some down below for you in the description box that might help to cover it up. Now, talking of disguising things, my third sign of aging are brown spots or lesions or moles or warts. Now, I have some. I've always been moly, but I have some newly acquired or fairly newly acquired lesions or warts on the side of my face right here, and I'll also insert an image so you can see them more clearly. Now, I think this is a very definite sign of aging, and I'll tell you why. I have noticed that quite a few of my peers, be they men or women, have these warts or moles or lesions on the side of their faces. Now, I don't know whether it's always on the left or the right, but it's usually here at the temple. Now, I haven't done any research into why that is, but I only notice it on people of my sort of age. So whatever's causing it, we've got them, and I think they are very aging. So what can we do about them? Well, what I do is I cover them up, and I'm inserting an image to show you how they look when they're covered up, and you can see that they're not as obvious. And that's because I do like to wear my hair back off my face. I put my hair up quite often, and I really don't want attention drawn to these, what I would consider unsightly moles or warts. So again, the concealer is your friend. That is what you need in order to cover up these type of spots. And just FYI, if you are interested in beauty, I did try to use the Lisa Eldridge Pinpoint Concealer. It really didn't work at all. It was not suitable, and I think it might be because these moles or warts are raised on your skin. They're not flat like maybe a blemish would be. So those pencils didn't work at all on this, but there's so many great concealers on the market, high-end and affordable and everything in between. I'll link some of my favourites down below for you, including the one I used, which I think was the Laura Mercier I used on this. But it just goes to show you don't have to live with these, and I do really think that if you can cover them up, I'm not saying that everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, she looks 10 years younger just because she's covered up a mole. No, I'm not saying that at all. But for me, they just scream age spots. And actually, on the subject of age spots, because a lot of people do get age spots on their hands as well as on their complexion, another really good defense against aging is applying SPF to the backs of your hands, because that is where you are going to get age spots as well as on your complexion. And I actually did that this morning. I don't always do it, it has to be said, but I'm lucky I don't seem to have any age spots at the moment. But I think it's also because if I've got any cream left, whether it's any retinol or tretinoin or SPF, I will put it on my hands. So I think if you want to keep your hands looking more youthful, then I would definitely consider adding your SPF to the back of your hands as well. Now, another sign of aging, I think, for women is overlining your lips with a darker colour, or even wearing too dark a lipstick. Now, I recorded this video about 10 minutes ago with a red lipstick, and then I watched it back and I thought, you know, talking about looking older, wearing a red lipstick. And I looked at the footage back and I thought, really, Des, you do look older with red lipstick. I mean, maybe it was just that particular lipstick, and I'll insert a picture of me wearing it, but it was not a good look. And I think maybe it was a bit too matte. So there is definitely something about not wearing too dark a lipstick and not overlining our lips with a darker colour, because it's a fine line. It's a difficult balance, because as we age, our complexion looks less defined. Our features tend to soften, although our noses tend to get more prominent. So we've got this sort of dual, what's the word? We've got this conundrum, I can't think of a better word, where we want to put definition into our face, but we don't want to emphasize the fact that our nose is suddenly more prominent. So we sometimes do that by using bronzer. I haven't got any bronzer on today, actually, but to put some definition into our face with colours, but we don't want the colours to be too strong, because then they will stand out rather than our features like our eyes. Those are the features that we want to draw attention to, not our noses particularly, unless we're very proud of them. And we want to make sure that our lips look plumper, and wearing darker colours is going to make them recede and look thinner. And we definitely don't want that. In fact, another thing that happens as we age is this gap here between the end of our nose and the beginning of our top lip also increases. And so we've got a more prominent nose, we've got less top lip. Lovely, isn't it? So we want to do the best we can for our complexion, and I would suggest using a lighter colour lipstick, generally speaking, is going to help that look, is going to make us more youthful, to make our complexion look plumper, look softer and more youthful. And talking of dark colours, number 6 in my list of signs of ageing is wearing too dark an eyeshadow. Now, this is something I'm guilty of, and I've been guilty of very recently. I was just looking back at a picture the other day of a video I did. I think it was where I was modelling my outfits of the week, and I thought, why have you put such a dark brown shadow on your eyelids? And that's because I always used to do that, and it's so difficult to get out of the habit. That's what I'm expecting to see, my dark hair, my dark eyeshadows, because that's the other thing, hair. So in the same vein as we've talked about dark lipsticks and dark eyeshadows, there's also dark hair, and I mourn my dark hair. I do mourn it, but I recognise that it is not serving me, and it's just making me look older. It's making my complexion look more harsh. So I think we want to avoid anything harsh, whether that is dark eyeshadows, particularly black eyeliner here or here. Although I think what works really well, and when you look at actresses who are in the older age group, who may of course have had work done, but what they do have is really fantastic black eyelashes. So the makeup artists focus on their lashes rather than fiddling around with any interesting or weird looking eyeshadows. It's all about the lashes, because after all, when you open your eyes and you're speaking to people, yes, of course you blink, but you also are looking at people and your eyes are open, and really you don't see a lot of eyeshadow. What you see are the lashes. So concentrate on the lashes and leave the dark shadows behind. Now, another sign of aging is wearing too much powder. And I have to tell you, I haven't actually worn any powder on my face at all for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And it's been quite a revelation, because I'm finding that, particularly for my concealer, I'm not setting it. And I'm finding that actually by not setting it, my under eyes are looking less cakey and looking more youthful, in my opinion. But let's go back to why I don't think powders are a good idea, because they tend to cake the face. They tend to make the complexion look thicker and less juicy and less plump. And also I think they can make pores look more visible. So if we think back to our grannies and maybe even our mums, they had powder compacts. They were forever powdering their noses. It was a thing. In fact, powdering your nose became a euphemism for going to the ladies. And although we don't tend to use powder compacts in the same way as our mums and grannies did, we do use powder. And I'm not saying give up powder by any means, but I think the key thing is to be very light-handed with it, and maybe even to consider using a brush instead of a powder puff. I know that's not always convenient when you're out and about, but maybe just take a little brush with you, or just be really gentle when you're using a powder puff. Don't overdo it. I have a tendency to overdo everything, so I'm speaking from experience here, but just be really gentle and judicious with your powder so that your complexion doesn't look dry or cakey. And finally, my 7th sign of aging is this disapproving attitude of the modern world that so many people in their 60s, 70s and beyond tend to do. Now look, we grow up in an age of accelerating technology, particularly if you're a woman. You learnt to type on a manual typewriter. And by the way, my mum sent me to secretarial school. I lasted 2 weeks, absolutely hated it, but I learnt to type on a manual typewriter. Yes, that's how old I am. And we evolved. So we started with a manual typewriter. We progressed to a golf ball. Do you remember those? You used to press that one key down, you get a row of letters. Yeah, that was quite difficult to learn to use a golf ball, but we learnt to do that. Then we learnt to use a word processor. Then we graduated to a computer. We know all about tech. We've been there. We've done that. We've got the t-shirt. We had to learn how to use VHS and remotes. We didn't have remotes back in the day when we had a Sony Trinitron, or we used to have an aerial that consisted of a coat hanger that we kind of had to stand on one leg and stick our arm out the window in order to get a reception on our TV. We've done all of that. We know all that. So we mustn't moan about tech. We mustn't moan about young people on the whole, because young people are our future, and we have to accept the fact that we are not going to be here forever, and they're here to make the world in their image, not in ours. And so we must accept that, and we must embrace it. Of course there'll be things we don't like, absolutely, and we live in a very polarized world at the moment. But we mustn't moan about young people. We must encourage them, we must support them, and we must be delighted with the way that they see the world and how they want to make it better. So there you have it. Those are our 7 signs of aging and what to do about them. So let me know in the comments, what are your signs of aging and what can we do about them? There's one elephant in the room that I haven't mentioned, and that is teeth. Now, my teeth are a work in progress. I know they're in a bad way. Those of you who watched my channel before will know how regularly I go to the dentist, but the trouble is they are so far gone that it is very difficult for me to do a huge amount about them, particularly my lower ones. And actually, it's interesting, teeth are very much in the news at the moment because the actress who's in The White Lotus's teeth have been commented on a lot in the media. In fact, I think Saturday Night Live sent her up as well with her teeth. I'm not sure that I feel that bad about the sending up, because Janet Street Porter, the presenter and journalist here in the UK who has very prominent teeth, used to be sent up rotten by Pamela Stephenson on Not the 9 O'Clock News, and it was brilliant and Janet didn't seem to mind at all. So I think you do have to take it in your stride perhaps, and I accept if you want to have a moan about my teeth, maybe you should. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you leave and give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. And if you'd like to hear more from me, I have a soon-to-be bi-monthly newsletter. And in that, I don't just talk about beauty, I also talk about fashion, lifestyle, entertainment, other content creators, and all the other bits and bobs that bring us joy. And thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. And I hope you're all doing really well. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye!